The quantum computers hummed in the depths of the Valthor command ship. Numbers flowed across holographic screens faster than any human eye could follow. Coordinator Vexthal watched the data stream with satisfaction. The simulations had run 847,000 times. Every possible outcome had been calculated. Every variable had been considered. The conclusion was always the same. Humanity was a threat. The coordinates floated in space before him. 3 human colony ships moved slowly through the darkness between stars. Inside those vessels, 45,000 humans traveled to their new home. Men, women, children, all unaware that they had been judged and found dangerous by calculations they would never see. Vexthal felt no anger toward them. Anger was inefficient. The Valthor had removed such emotions from their species long ago. Everything they did was based on logic and survival. The simulation showed that humans would eventually compete with the Valthor for resources. In 63% of scenarios, this competition led to war. In 92% of scenarios where war occurred, both species suffered massive casualties. The logical solution was clear. Remove the threat before it could grow stronger. Weapons ready, Vexthal said. His voice was calm. Around him, other Valthor officers worked at their stations. They had been bred for this, trained for this. Every action was precise and calculated. The 3 colony ships appeared on the main screen. They were large and slow, built for carrying families rather than fighting wars. Their shields were minimal. Their weapons were designed only for clearing space debris. The simulations gave them a 0.3% chance of survival. Observer Quintar stood beside Vexthal. She was younger than most coordinators, curious about other species in a way that others found unusual. The humans, she said quietly. Do they know we are here? They will know in approximately 40 seconds, Vexthal replied. That is when our weapons reach their position. Quintar nodded. She had reviewed the simulations herself. There was no other logical choice, and yet something about the situation troubled her in a way she could not name. Perhaps it was the fact that the colony ships carried children. Perhaps it was because the humans had done nothing aggressive yet. The simulations predicted future behavior, not current actions. But the simulations were never wrong. They had made the Valthor the most successful species in 12 star systems. Other civilizations had fallen to war or disease or their own violent natures. The Valthor survived because they eliminated threats before those threats could harm them. Firing, announced the weapons officer. Brilliant beams of energy lanced through space. They struck the colony ships with terrible precision. Explosions bloomed against the shields of the human vessels. Alarms would be screaming inside those ships now. Families would be running to emergency stations. Children would be crying. Vexthal felt nothing. Emotion was inefficient. The first colony ship's shield collapsed. The second beam tore through its hull. Atmosphere vented into space, freezing instantly into glittering clouds of ice. The ship began to tumble, powerless and dying. Human vessels are broadcasting distress signals, reported the communications officer. They are requesting aid. Predictable, Vexthal said. The simulations had calculated this response with 98% accuracy. Continue firing. But then something unexpected happened. 3 smaller ships suddenly appeared from behind a nearby asteroid field. They moved fast, much faster than the colony ships. These were military vessels. Human warships, new contacts, the sensor officer announced. Human frigate class. 2 escort destroyers. Quintar pulled up the data on her screen. The lead ship was called the Resilient Dawn. Its captain was listed as Kang Deho. She scanned through the limited information they had on human military structure. These ships were not heavily armed by Valthor standards, but they were designed for combat in ways the colony ships were not. Running new simulations, Vexthal said calmly. The quantum computers recalculated. New numbers flowed across the screens. The outcome remained favorable for the Valthor. Victory probability 94%. Engage the military vessels. The battle began in earnest. The human ships moved with surprising agility. Their weapons were crude but effective at close range. One of the Valthor cruisers took damage to its port side. Another had its shield generator overloaded by a sustained barrage. Inside the Resilient Dawn, Captain Kang Deho gripped the arms of his command chair. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Park Minji, shouted updates as explosions rocked the ship around them. Forward shields at 40%. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9. Return fire, Kang ordered. Target their weapon arrays. I need more power to the engines. In the engineering section, Taeyang worked frantically at the controls. Sparks flew from damaged conduits. The smell of burning electronics filled the air. I'm giving you everything we have, Captain. But we're not built to fight ships this advanced. Kang knew that. He had seen the specifications on Valthor vessels. They were faster, stronger, more efficient in every way. But the colony ships were dying. 45,000 people were crying out for help. He had not become a captain to run from impossible odds. Minji, calculate a suicide run on their command ship. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. Park Minji's fingers flew across her console. She was brilliant at tactics, always 3 moves ahead. But even she could see they were outmatched. Course plotted, sir. But Captain, the colony ships. If we're destroyed, there's no one left to defend them. Kang closed his eyes for 1 second. He thought of his own family lost to violence years ago. He thought of all the children on those colony ships who deserved to grow up and see the stars. He thought of what kind of universe would exist if the only response to violence was more violence. He opened his eyes. Cancel that order. Cease fire. Open all emergency channels. The bridge went silent. Everyone turned to stare at him. Sir? Minji said carefully. Did you say cease fire? You heard me. Stop shooting. Broadcast on every frequency we have. Medical protocols, emergency procedures, anything that might help survivors. Theirs and ours. Dr. Choi Yuna's voice came over the internal comm from the medical bay. Captain, did you just order us to help the people who are attacking us? That's exactly what I ordered, Doctor. Get your teams ready. We're about to have a lot of patients. On the Valthor command ship, Observer Quintar stared at her screen in confusion. Coordinator, the human ships have stopped firing. They are broadcasting. I do not understand. They are sending medical data, emergency response protocols. They have translated it into our language. Vexthal stood frozen. For the first time in his career, he did not know what to do. He pulled up the simulation data. The quantum computers could not process what was happening. Error messages cascaded across the screens. This is not possible, he said. This outcome was not calculated. They should be fighting. They should be trying to destroy us or escape. They are losing. Why would they offer medical assistance? Quintar played the human broadcasts. A woman's voice spoke in rough but understandable Valthor language. This is Dr. Choi Yuna of the human vessel Resilient Dawn. We are transmitting emergency medical procedures for radiation exposure, decompression injuries, and plasma burns. Any survivors, please respond. We will help you regardless of species or allegiance. The communications officer looked at Vexthal. What are your orders, Coordinator? Vexthal did not answer. He could not answer. In 847,000 simulations, not once had the computers predicted this. An enemy showing mercy. An enemy offering help while their own people were dying. The simulations had been perfect. They had accounted for every possibility. Except this one. The silence in the Valthor command center stretched for what felt like hours. In reality, only 90 seconds had passed since the human ship stopped firing. 90 seconds since they began broadcasting medical assistance to the very forces trying to kill them. Coordinator Vexthal stared at the quantum computer screens as they continued to flash error messages. He had never seen this before. The simulations were designed to predict everything. They had guided the Valthor through 300 years of expansion without a single strategic failure. Now they showed nothing but cascading warnings and failed calculations. Run the simulations again, he ordered. Include the new variable. Human compassion during active combat. The computers hummed. Numbers flew across the holographic displays. Then one by one the screens went dark. The quantum processors had crashed. Not from damage or malfunction, but from attempting to process something that made no logical sense. Observer Quintar stepped forward. Coordinator, the simulations cannot account for illogical behavior. Helping an enemy during battle contradicts all survival instincts. The computers do not have a framework for this action. Then create one, Vexthal said. His voice remained calm, but Quintar detected something she had never heard from him before. Uncertainty. Against every protocol she had been taught, Quintar made a decision. She opened a communication channel directly to the human ship. The Resilient Dawn appeared on her screen. A moment later, a face looked back at her. Dr. Choi Yuna sat in what appeared to be a medical bay. Behind her, human crew members rushed back and forth, treating wounded. The doctor's face was tired. Blood stained her white uniform, but her eyes were steady and calm. "This is Dr. Choi Yuna. Who am I speaking with?" "I am Observer Quintar of the Valthor Collective. I need to understand. Why did you cease fire? Why are you offering medical assistance?" Yuna looked surprised. Then incredibly, she smiled. It was a sad smile, but genuine. "Because people are hurt. Because helping is what we do. Would you like us to send medical teams to your damaged ships?" Quintar felt something strange in her chest. An emotion she could not identify. The Valthor had been bred to eliminate such feelings, but traces remained in some individuals. "You attacked us without warning. You killed thousands of our people, and now you offer help?" "You attacked us first," Yuna said gently. "You were trying to destroy colony ships full of families. But yes, we still offer help, because what you did doesn't change what's right." Before Quintar could respond, another human appeared on the screen. He was older, with lines around his eyes that suggested years of difficult decisions. He wore a captain's uniform. "I'm Captain Kang Daeho, commander of this vessel." "Observer Quintar, is it? I'd like to speak with whoever is in charge over there." Vexthal moved into view of the camera. For several seconds, the two leaders simply looked at each other, one bred for perfect logic and efficiency, the other shaped by centuries of human conflict and growth. "I am Coordinator Vexthal. I do not understand your actions, Captain. Our simulations predicted you would either attempt to destroy us or flee. You have done neither. Explain." Kang leaned back in his chair. "Your simulations. You relied on computers to tell you what we would do, but you never tried to understand who we are." "We know what you are," Vexthal said. "Our data on humanity is extensive. You are violent, territorial. You fight wars among yourselves. You consume resources at unsustainable rates. You are a threat to galactic stability." "We were those things," Kang admitted. "In many ways, we still are. But we're also something else. Something your computers couldn't predict because maybe you've never experienced it yourselves. We're capable of change, of choosing to be better than we were." Lieutenant Park Minji appeared beside the captain. Her arm was in a medical brace, but she stood straight. "Coordinator Vexthal, may I ask you something? When did your people last show mercy to an enemy?" Vexthal considered the question. He accessed the Valthor historical database through his neural link. He searched for instances of compassion toward defeated foes, of aid given to those who had attacked first. The search returned no results for the past 1,000 years. "Mercy is inefficient," he said finally. "It allows threats to survive and attack again. It wastes resources on those who have proven themselves dangerous." "And yet here we are," Kang said. "We're the ones bleeding and dying, and we're still offering you medical assistance. Does that seem inefficient to you? Or does it seem like something your simulations couldn't calculate because they've forgotten what it means?" Quintar pulled up the ancient Valthor archives. She had to dig deep, past centuries of data that had been deemed irrelevant to modern survival. And there, buried in files that had not been accessed in generations, she found something. "Coordinator," she said quietly, "I have found references to an old Valthor concept. The word translates approximately to grace-giving. It appears in texts from before our genetic optimization programs." Vexthal turned to her. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that perhaps we once understood mercy, but we removed it. We deleted it from our culture and our biology because it was deemed counterproductive to survival. On the human ship, Dr. Yuna had been listening. You deliberately removed compassion from your species. Why would anyone do that?" Quintar brought up images of the Valthor homeworld. It was a harsh place. Desert stretched across most continents. Water was scarce. Resources were limited. We evolved on a world where kindness meant death, where helping the weak meant less for the strong. We learned that efficiency was survival. Over thousands of years, we shaped ourselves into the perfect surviving species. But at what cost? Kang asked. If you've lost the ability to show mercy, to help those in need, to choose compassion over calculation, what does that make you? Before anyone could answer, Engineer An Taeyang's voice came over both ships' communication systems. "Captain, Coordinator, we have an emergency. One of the damaged colony ships is breaking apart. It's going to collide with the Valthor cruiser in 8 minutes. Both ships have failing engines. They can't move out of the way." Park Minji's hands flew across her console. "Sir, I'm running the numbers. The colony ship has 10,000 civilians. The Valthor cruiser has 3,000 crew members. We can save one of them. Not both. The bridge went silent. On the Valthor command ship, officers turned to look at Vexthal. This was simple mathematics. 10,000 humans versus 3,000 Valthor. Any species would choose to save their own people. What will you do, Captain? Vexthal asked. Your simulations must tell you the logical choice. Save your people. Let mine die. It is what we would do. Kang closed his eyes. When he opened them, Minji saw the decision there before he spoke. She had served with him for 5 years. She knew what kind of man he was. The captain said calmly. Find me a third option, sir. The engineer responded. There is no third option. We don't have time, we don't have the power, we don't have... Find one anyway. That's an order. Taeyang sat in the damaged engineering bay, surrounded by sparking equipment and failing systems. He looked at the data. 2 ships on a collision course. Not enough time to save both. It was impossible. But then he remembered something his academy instructor had told him years ago. Engineering isn't about what's possible. It's about making the impossible work anyway. His fingers moved across the controls. Captain, I have an idea, but it's going to hurt a lot. Explain, Kang said. We position the Resilient Dawn between the colony ship and the Valthor cruiser. Use our emergency thrusters to push them apart. It will breach our hull in multiple sections. We'll take heavy casualties. There's a good chance we won't survive. Minji ran the calculations. Sir, if we do this, our survival probability drops to 18%. On the Valthor ship, Quintar watched the human crew. She saw them looking at their captain, saw the fear in their eyes. These were people who understood they were being asked to die for strangers, for enemies. Captain Kang, Vexthal said, why would you sacrifice your ship to save mine? We attacked you. We tried to exterminate your colonists. The logical choice is to save your own people and let us face the consequences of our actions. Kang stood up from his command chair. Because, Coordinator, sometimes the right choice isn't the logical one. Sometimes you do things not because they make sense, but because they're right. And because maybe, just maybe, if we save you today, tomorrow you'll understand why. He looked at his crew. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuver. This is going to be rough. Execute your plan. The Resilient Dawn turned and accelerated toward the collision point. Inside both doomed vessels, people watched as the human warship positioned itself between them. They watched as it fired every thruster it had, pushing ships apart that massed far more than itself. The sounds of tearing metal echoed through every deck of the Resilient Dawn. Hull breaches opened, atmosphere vented, emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sometimes with crew members on the wrong side. Dr. Yuna and her medical teams worked frantically as casualties flooded in. But slowly, impossibly, the 2 ships separated. The colony ship veered away. The Valthor cruiser drifted clear. The collision was avoided. The Resilient Dawn hung in space, bleeding atmosphere and listing badly. 30% of its crew was dead or injured. But on that ship, and on the colony vessel, and on the Valthor cruiser, people were alive who should have died. Quintar stared at the data. The humans had chosen to save both. They had sacrificed themselves for enemies and strangers alike, and somehow they had survived doing it. The simulations had not predicted this, could not predict this, because mercy, real mercy, was beyond calculation. The Valthor Central Council chamber was a perfect circle. 50 council members sat in precisely arranged seats, each position calculated for optimal acoustic efficiency and visual clarity. Everything about the Valthor was designed for efficiency. Even their government coordinator Vexthal stood at the center of the circle. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing the battle data from the human encounter. Every member of the council had access to the same information. They had all reviewed the simulations. They had all seen the failures. 847,000 scenarios, Council Leader Thexnil said. His voice was ancient but steady. Not once did our systems predict this outcome. Explain. I cannot, Vexthal admitted. The humans acted in ways that contradict all survival instincts. They offered medical assistance while under attack. They sacrificed their own ship to save both their people and ours. The quantum processors could not calculate these actions because they are fundamentally illogical. A council member from the war faction stood. Commander Raxthor was younger than most, but his military record was flawless. Then the humans are unpredictable. Unpredictability is dangerous. We should eliminate them before they become a greater threat. Respectfully, Commander, we tried to eliminate them, Quintar said. She stood beside Vexthul, brought to testify about what she had witnessed. Our attempt is what led to this situation. Perhaps elimination is not the solution. Then what is? Raxthor demanded. Observer, you suggest we ignore a species that our simulations cannot predict? That is the definition of a threat. Quintar had spent the journey back to Valth Prime reviewing everything she had learned about humans. Their history was violent and chaotic. Wars had consumed their homeworld for millennia. They had nearly destroyed themselves dozens of times. But somehow they had also created art, music, literature, philosophy. They had built systems of justice and mercy. They had chosen slowly and painfully to become better. I suggest, she said carefully, that perhaps our simulations are incomplete. We have optimized for survival, for efficiency, for logical outcomes. But we have not accounted for growth, for change, for the possibility that a species might choose compassion over calculation. The council chamber filled with murmurs. The concept was strange to many. The Valthor had not fundamentally changed in thousands of years. They had perfected themselves and saw no reason for further evolution. Council leader Thexenil raised his hand for silence. Observer Quintar, you have included human cultural data in your report. Music, stories, historical records. Why? Because the humans sent it to us, leader. After the battle, after they saved our ships, they transmitted data about their culture. Not military information, not tactical data. They sent us stories about forgiveness, about redemption, about second chances. I believe they were trying to tell us something. That they are weak, Raxthor said. That they allow emotion to override logic. Or, Quintar countered, that they understand something we have forgotten. The council debated for hours. The war faction argued for immediate military action, a preemptive strike to eliminate the unpredictable threat. The inquiry faction, smaller but growing, suggested that perhaps more study was needed. That perhaps the humans represented not a threat, but an opportunity to understand something new. Finally, Thexenil made a decision. We will send a delegation to Earth. Coordinator Vexthul and Observer Quintar will lead this mission. One science vessel. No weapons. If the humans attack, that will tell us what we need to know. If they do not, he left the sentence unfinished. No one knew what would happen if they did not. 3 weeks later, the Valthor science vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Quintar stood on the bridge, her 3 hearts beating faster than normal. She was afraid, though she would not admit it. The Valthor had bred fear out of most of their population, but traces remained in some. We are being scanned, reported the sensor officer. Multiple Earth defense satellites have locked weapons on our position. Expected, Vexthul said. We attacked their colony ships. They have every reason to fire on us. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. A human face appeared on the screen. The woman wore a diplomatic uniform and her smile seemed genuine. This is Geneva Control. Welcome to Earth's solar system. We've been expecting you. Please transmit your diplomatic credentials and proceed to these coordinates for orbital insertion. Quintar blinked all 4 of her eyes in surprise. They are not attacking us? They are welcoming us, Vexthul said. He sounded as confused as she felt. The Valthor ship moved slowly toward Earth. From orbit, the planet was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. White clouds swirled in atmospheric patterns. Green and brown continents showed forests and deserts and mountains. It was nothing like Valth Prime, which was mostly arid wasteland. Scans show population centers across all continents, the sensor officer reported. Approximately 9 billion humans. Multiple languages. Hundreds of different cultures. This is illogical. Why do they not consolidate for efficiency? Perhaps, Quintar said quietly. Efficiency is not their primary goal. A shuttle brought them down to the surface. To a city called Geneva. Quintar and Vexthul walked through human streets surrounded by security but not imprisoned. Humans stopped to stare at them. Some looked afraid. Others looked curious. And some looked angry, which Quintar understood. The Valthor had killed humans. These people had every right to hatred, but no one attacked them. No one threw weapons or shouted threats. They simply watched as the two Valthor walked to the diplomatic center. Why are they not attacking us? Vexthul asked the human guide assigned to them. The guide, a young man named Park Jiho, smiled. Because you came in peace. You lowered your shields, transmitted diplomatic codes, and requested dialogue. We're not going to attack someone who comes seeking understanding. But we killed your people, Quintar said. Jiho's smile faded. Yes, you did. And we're angry about that. We grieve for those we lost. But attacking you now wouldn't bring them back. It would just create more death. More grief. So we choose to talk instead. That evening, Vexthul and Quintar visited the World Unity Memorial. It was a massive structure in the center of Geneva, built to commemorate the end of Earth's last global war in 2089. Inside, holographic displays showed the history of human conflict, wars that had killed millions, weapons that had nearly destroyed their entire species, pain and suffering on a scale that made even the Valthor uncomfortable. But the memorial did not celebrate war. It mourned it. And it celebrated the choice humanity had made to stop, to build something better. Your species nearly destroyed itself, Vexthul said to Jiho, who had accompanied them. How did you survive? We learned, Jiho said simply. We learned that violence only creates more violence. That revenge only creates more revenge. We learned that the only way forward was to choose something different. It took centuries. It cost billions of lives. But we learned. Quintar stopped in front of a display showing the aftermath of a nuclear war, cities reduced to rubble, children crying in the ruins. You remember this? You keep these memories alive? We have to, Jiho said. If we forget what we were capable of, we might do it again. The memorial is not just about the past. It's a promise about the future. A promise to choose better. The next day, they met with Captain Kang Daeho. He was on Earth for medical treatment after the injuries he sustained during the battle. He walked with a slight limp now, but his eyes were clear and steady. They met in a small garden, not a formal conference room. Kang sat on a bench and gestured for the Valthor to join him. For several minutes, they simply sat in silence, watching human children play nearby. Your simulations, Kang finally said. They told you we were dangerous, that we would compete with you for resources. That war was inevitable. Yes, Vexthul confirmed. They weren't wrong, Kang said. We probably would compete with you. Humans are expansive. We want to grow, to explore, to build. And resources are finite. So yes, eventually we might come into conflict. Then you understand why we acted as we did, Vexthul said. I understand your reasoning, Kang replied. But I don't agree with your conclusion. See, your simulations assume that conflict meant war. That competition meant violence. But there's another option. One your computers couldn't calculate because maybe your people haven't experienced it in a long time. What option? Cooperation, sharing, working together instead of against each other. You have technology we don't have. We have perspectives you've lost. Together we could build something neither of us could create alone. Quintar felt that strange sensation in her chest again, that emotion she could not name. But we attacked you. We tried to kill your people. How can you forgive that? Kang looked at her directly. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing not to let it define what happens next. You made a mistake based on incomplete information. You've come here to learn. That takes courage. That deserves a chance. A human child, no more than 6 years old, approached them. She held a flower she had picked from the garden. She looked up at Quintar with wide, curious eyes. Are you an alien? The child asked. Yes, Quintar said carefully. She had never spoken to a human child before. You're pretty, the child said. She held out the flower. This is for you. Quintar took the flower with trembling hands. It was yellow and delicate. It would die in a few days. It served no practical purpose. It was completely inefficient. And it was the most beautiful thing she had ever received. The child ran back to her parents, who waved apologetically. Kang smiled. That girl doesn't know about the battle. She doesn't know you attacked us. She just sees someone new, someone different. And her first instinct is to give you something beautiful. This is what you mean, Vexthul said slowly. This is the unpredictable variable. The choice to give rather than take, to forgive rather than punish, to hope rather than calculate. Now you're beginning to understand, Kang said. But their moment of understanding was interrupted by an urgent communication. Quintar's personal device activated. The message was from Valth Prime, From the war faction, a massive fleet had been launched. 200 ships. They were heading for human space. The war faction had decided not to wait for the diplomatic mission to conclude. They were going to eliminate the human threat permanently, and this time they were prepared for human mercy. The emergency alert screamed across every human military installation in the solar system. Admiral Kang Deho, still recovering from his injuries, was rushed back to Fleet Command. His promotion had come through while he was in the hospital, though he barely had time to appreciate it. The Valthor were coming, and this time they meant to finish what they started. "How many ships?" Kang asked as he limped into the command center. His leg still hurt, but there was no time for pain now. Commander Park Minji stood at the tactical display. She had been promoted too, now serving as his first officer. Her arm had healed, but she wore a brace as a reminder. 200 Valthor warships, sir. They'll reach our outer colonies in 72 hours, Earth in 96. Kang looked at the display. The human fleet consisted of 47 ships. They were badly outnumbered. The quantum computers that ran tactical simulations gave them a 3% chance of victory. 3%. Not impossible, but close. "Where is the resilient Dawn?" he asked. "Still in repair dock," Minji reported. "She won't be space-worthy for another month." "Sir, we have Valthor representatives on Earth. Vexthul and Quintar. Should we detain them?" Kang considered this. The logical choice would be to imprison potential enemies. But logic had not served them well in dealing with the Valthor. "No, bring them here. I want to hear what they have to say." An hour later, Vexthul and Quintar stood in the human command center. Around them, human officers worked frantically to prepare defenses. The Valthor coordinators looked at the tactical displays, understanding immediately how hopeless the situation was. "This is Commander Raxthor's doing," Vexthul said. "The war faction. They decided not to wait for our report." "Can you stop them?" Kang asked. "We can try to communicate with them, but Raxthor is not known for listening to opposing viewpoints. He believes you are a threat. He will not stop until that threat is eliminated." Quintar moved to one of the communication stations. "Admiral, may I access your transmission equipment? I need to send a message to the fleet." "Do it," Kang ordered. Quintar worked quickly, her four-fingered hands moving across the human controls with surprising ease. She accessed the Valthor military network and began broadcasting. "This is Observer Quintar to the Valthor combat fleet. Commander Raxthor, respond. This is an urgent message from your diplomatic mission on Earth." For several minutes, there was no response. Then Raxthor's face appeared on the screen. He looked young for a commander, but his eyes were hard and certain. "Observer Quintar, your transmission is noted. It will not change our mission parameters. Commander, you do not understand what you are about to do. The humans are not what our simulations predicted. They are unpredictable," Raxthor interrupted. "Which makes them dangerous. You have been compromised, Observer. You have allowed emotion to override logic. The war faction will complete the mission you failed to execute. Commander, please listen." But Raxthor ended the transmission. Quintar turned to Kang, and for the first time the Admiral saw real emotion on a Valthor face. Fear, regret, desperation. "I am sorry," she said. "This is my fault. I should have sent clearer reports. I should have made them understand." "This isn't your fault," Kang said. "Sometimes people believe what they want to believe, no matter what evidence you show them." Vexthul studied the tactical displays. His logical mind, trained for millennia of strategic thinking, could see the outcome clearly. "Admiral, you cannot win this battle. The simulations give you a 3% probability of success. You should evacuate, save as many humans as possible, and retreat to deep space." "We could do that," Kang admitted. "But that would mean abandoning millions of colonists in the outer systems. It would mean giving up Earth. Where would we go? How would we live, running forever from enemies who can predict our every move?" "You would live," Vexthul said simply. "That is what matters." "No," Kang said quietly. "That's survival. It's not the same as living." Park Minji had been working at her station while the others talked. Now she looked up and Kang saw something in her expression that he recognized. An idea. A dangerous one. "Sir, I have a proposal. It's unconventional." "I'm listening." "The Valthor expect us to fight to win. They've calculated every battle scenario based on that assumption. Their simulations predict we'll try to destroy their fleet, or we'll retreat to save ourselves. What if we do neither?" Kang leaned forward. "Explain. What if we fight not to win, but to prove them wrong? What if we focus on disabling their ships instead of destroying them? What if we offer rescue to every ship we disable? What if we show Commander Raxthor the same mercy we showed Coordinator Vexthul?" The command center went silent. Every human officer stared at Minji like she had suggested they attack with water balloons. "Commander Park," an older admiral said slowly, "you're suggesting we show mercy to an enemy that's coming to exterminate our entire species?" "I'm suggesting we show them what their simulations can't predict," Minji said. "Mercy isn't just about being kind. It's about being strong enough to choose kindness even when it would be easier to choose violence. If we meet them with the same logic they're using, we prove their point. We become the threat they believe us to be. But if we meet them with mercy, we prove them wrong." Kang looked at Vexthul. "Coordinator, if we did this, if we fought the way Commander Park suggests, what would happen?" Vexthul was quiet for a long moment. His mind raced through calculations, through years of strategic training. "It would not work," he said finally. "Raxthor would see it as weakness. He would press his advantage. You would all die." "But what if it did work?" Kang pressed. "What if your people saw humans sacrificing themselves to save Valthor lives? What if they saw us choosing mercy over victory? Would that change anything?" Vexthul thought about the flower the human child had given to Quintar, about the memorial to peace in Geneva, about Captain Kang sacrificing his ship to save both humans and Valthor, about all the things the simulations had failed to predict. "I do not know," he admitted. "The simulations cannot account for it, which means I cannot predict it. Which means—" He paused and something like wonder crossed his face. "Which means it might actually work." "It's a long shot," Kang said. 3% probability was a long shot, Minji pointed out. "This is at least more interesting." Kang made his decision. "All ships prepare for deployment. I want engineering teams ready with protocols for disabling rather than destroying enemy vessels. Medical bays on full standby. Communications prepare to broadcast rescue operations on all frequencies, including Valthor military channels." Dr. Choi Yuna's face appeared on one of the screens. She was in the medical bay of the fleet's flagship. "Admiral, did I just hear you correctly? You want us to rescue enemy combatants during active battle?" "That's exactly what I want, Doctor." "Can you do it?" Yuna smiled. "I've been preparing for this since our last encounter. We've developed new protocols for treating Valthor injuries. We've even learned some of their language. If you can get them to us, we can save them." "Engineer An Taiyang here," another voice said. "Sir, I've been working on new targeting systems. We can disable ships with minimal casualties if we're careful. It'll be harder than just blowing them up, but it's possible." "Then let's make it happen," Kang said. Quintar moved to stand beside him. "Admiral, I request permission to join your fleet. I can help coordinate rescue operations. I can speak to any Valthor survivors. And I will join as well," Vexthul said. "If there is any chance of stopping this war, I must try." Kang nodded. "Welcome aboard. Though I have to warn you, we're about to attempt something incredibly stupid." "I am beginning to understand," Vexthul said. "That incredibly stupid is how humans describe their most brilliant ideas." The human fleet launched from Earth orbit. 47 ships against 200. They moved to intercept the Valthor armada at the edge of human space, near the colony worlds that had been attacked weeks earlier. It was a symbolic choice. The place where this conflict had begun would be the place where it ended, one way or another. Commander Raxthor watched from his flagship as the human ships approached. His simulations had predicted this. The humans would make a stand at their colonies. They would fight desperately and lose. It was mathematically certain. "All ships prepare to engage," he ordered. "Target their military vessels first. We will deal with the colonies after the fleet is destroyed." But as the battle began, something strange happened. The human ships fought, but not the way Raxthor expected. They aimed for engines and weapon systems, not hull breaches. They disabled rather than destroyed. And strangest of all, they broadcast on open channels. This is Admiral Kang Deho of the human fleet. Any Valthor ships that have been disabled, respond. We are prepared to offer medical assistance and rescue operations. You do not have to die today. Raxthor stared at the transmission. This is a trick. They are trying to make us lower our guard. But it was not a trick. As Valthor ships were disabled, human rescue shuttles approached. Dr. Yuna and her medical teams beamed aboard damaged vessels, treating wounded Valthor crew members. Engineer On's teams helped repair critical life support systems to buy time for evacuations. On one disabled Valthor cruiser, the captain watched in amazement as humans worked frantically to save his crew. "Why are you doing this?" he asked Dr. Yuna as she stabilized one of his officers. "Because you're hurt," Yuna said simply. "That's all the reason I need." The captain looked at his crew, looked at the humans risking their lives to save people who had come to kill them. He thought of the simulations, the calculations, the logic that said mercy was weakness. Then he opened a channel to his fleet. "This is Captain Tulvok to all Valthor vessels. I am ordering my ship to stand down. We will not fire on those who came to save us." Other captains heard the transmission. They saw the rescue operations. They saw humans dying to protect Valthor lives. And one by one, some began to question their orders. Commander Raxthor saw his fleet beginning to fracture. "All ships continue firing. This is a direct order. Any captain who disobeys will face execution." But doubt had entered the equation, and doubt was something the simulations could not eliminate. The battle raged across the star system for hours. Human ships moved in patterns that made no tactical sense by Valthor standards. They sacrificed advantageous positions to protect disabled enemy vessels. They used their shields to defend Valthor ships that could no longer defend themselves. They took damage that could have been avoided if they had simply focused on survival. Commander Raxthor watched it all with growing frustration. His simulations kept failing. The quantum computers could not predict what the humans would do next because their actions contradicted every principle of warfare the Valthor understood. "They are making themselves vulnerable," his tactical officer reported. "Ship after ship. They expose themselves to save our disabled vessels. Sir, we should concentrate our fire on these rescue operations. We can destroy them easily." Raxthor stared at the displays. The officer was right. The humans were giving him perfect targets. Every time they stopped to rescue a Valthor crew, they became sitting prey. He could wipe them out. The simulation said so. Victory probability, 97%. But something stopped him. Something he could not name. He had never felt it before. Uncertainty, doubt, or something deeper. Something his species had removed from themselves long ago. "Commander," another officer said, "Captain Tulvok's ship is being evacuated by human rescue teams. His entire crew is being saved. Sir, what are your orders?" Before Raxthor could answer, Coordinator Vexithal's voice came across the fleet-wide channel. He was broadcasting from Admiral Kang's flagship, and he was transmitting something that no Valthor had seen in thousands of years: ancient archives. Historical records from before the genetic optimization programs, before the Valthor had removed emotion and mercy from their species. "This is Coordinator Vexthal to all Valthor vessels. I have discovered something that was hidden from us. Something our ancestors knew, but we forgot. We were not always as we are now. We chose to become this way. We chose efficiency over compassion, logic over mercy, survival over living." Images flowed across every screen in the Valthor fleet. Ancient Valthor helping each other through disasters. Old traditions of caring for the weak. Concepts that had been deemed inefficient and removed. "We did this to survive," Vexthal continued. "And we did survive. We became the most successful species in 12 star systems. But we lost something. Something the humans never lost. Despite their own violent history, they kept their capacity for mercy, for choosing to help even when it costs them, for saving lives even when those lives belonged to enemies." Raxthor tried to shut down the transmission, but Quintar had encoded it with priority override codes. Every Valthor ship received it. Every crew member heard it. "Look at what is happening around you," Vexthal said. "Human ships are dying to save our crews. They are sacrificing themselves for us, for people who came here to exterminate them. This is not weakness. This is strength we have forgotten how to recognize. On the human flagship, Admiral Kang stood beside Vexthul. His ship had taken heavy damage. Casualties were mounting, but when Commander Park Minji gave him tactical reports showing where they could strike decisive blows against the Valthor fleet, he shook his head. Keep focusing on rescue operations. Disable and save. That's our mission. Sir, we're losing ships, Minji said quietly. Good people are dying. I know, Kang said. His voice was heavy with grief. But if we abandon what makes us human to win this battle, we lose anyway. We become what they feared we were. Dr. Choi Yuna was exhausted. She had been treating wounded for 6 hours straight. Human casualties, Valthor casualties. It did not matter. They were all patients who needed help. Her uniform was covered in blood of 2 different colors, human red and Valthor blue-green. Doctor, we have another Valthor ship disabled, one of her nurses reported. 20 wounded crew members requesting evacuation. Send a shuttle, Yuna ordered. Full medical team. Priority 1. Doctor, we're running low on medical supplies. If we keep treating them, we might not have enough for our own people. Yuna looked at her nurse, saw the fear and frustration there, understood it completely. But she also understood something else. Something that defined what it meant to be human. Then we'll share what we have. We'll make do, but we don't choose who lives based on which side they're on. We're doctors. We save lives. All of them. On Raxthor's flagship, the crew was beginning to question their orders. They had all received Vexthul's transmission. They had all seen the archived records of what their species had been. And they were all watching humans die to save Valthor lives. A young officer named Kirvan approached the commander. Sir, I request permission to speak freely. Denied, Raxthor said. But Kirvan spoke anyway. Sir, my brother was on Captain Tulvok's cruiser. The humans saved him. They risked their lives to pull him from a damaged section. He was our enemy and they saved him. Sir, what does that make us? What are we doing? Other officers murmured agreement. Raxthor looked around his bridge and saw doubt in every face. The simulations had not predicted this. They could not account for Valthor crew members questioning the fundamental logic of their mission. We are following our orders, Raxthor said, but his voice lacked certainty. We are eliminating a threat. Are they a threat? Kirvan asked. Or have we made them one by attacking them first? Before Raxthor could respond, alarms blared across his ship. A human vessel was on a collision course with his flagship. It was badly damaged, leaking atmosphere, engines failing, but it was moving directly toward them. This is it, the tactical officer said. This is their suicide attack. They are going to ram us. Raxthor's hands moved toward the weapons controls. One shot would destroy the approaching ship. The simulations gave him clear instructions. Eliminate the threat. Survival over mercy. But then Admiral Kang's voice came over the open channel. Valthor flagship, this is Admiral Kang. Our ship is damaged and losing control. We're going to pass close to your position. I know you could destroy us right now. You probably should. But I'm asking you not to. Not because we deserve mercy, but because maybe you deserve the chance to choose it. The human ship drifted closer. Raxthor could see the damage on its hull. See the emergency lights flickering. See human crew members in windows, waiting to see if they would live or die. They were not attacking. They were simply damaged and vulnerable. He could fire. Should fire. Every simulation said so. One shot and the human admiral would be eliminated. The enemy would be leaderless. Victory would be certain. His finger hovered over the control. And then he thought about Captain Tulvok. About all the Valthor crew members the humans had saved. About the ancient archives showing what his people had been. About the child who had given Quintar a flower. About mercy as strength rather than weakness. Hold fire, he said quietly. Sir? The weapons officer asked. Hold fire. Raxthor said it louder this time. Send rescue teams to the human vessel. Help them with emergency repairs. Keep them from drifting into our ship. The bridge went silent. Then Kirvan moved to his station and began coordinating the rescue. Other officers followed. Within minutes, Valthor crews were boarding the human ship, helping to stabilize systems, treating wounded, preventing the collision. Admiral Kang watched as Valthor engineers worked alongside engineer An Taeyang to repair critical systems. Watched as Valthor medical personnel helped Dr. Yuna treat the wounded. Watched enemies becoming helpers. Thank you, he said simply over the open channel. Raxthor looked at his screen. At the human admiral who should have been his enemy. Who was his enemy? and who he had just chosen to save. "I do not understand what is happening," Raxthor admitted. "My simulations all failed. My logic has proven insufficient." "What are you doing to us?" "We're not doing anything to you," Kang said. "We're just showing you what's possible, what your people used to know, what they can know again." Across the star system, other Valthor ships were making similar choices. Captains were ordering ceasefires. Crews were refusing to target rescue operations. The battle was not ending in victory for either side. It was ending in something the simulations had never predicted. It was ending in understanding. Coordinator Vexthul stood on the bridge of the human flagship and made a fleet-wide announcement to all Valthor vessels. "This is Coordinator Vexthul. I am ordering all Valthor ships to stand down. We came here to eliminate a threat based on simulations that predicted inevitable conflict. But the simulations were wrong, not because they calculated incorrectly, but because they could not account for growth, for change, for the choice to be better than we were." Commander Raxthor's voice joined his. "This is Commander Raxthor. I am confirming the stand-down order. All Valthor vessels will cease hostilities immediately. We will cooperate with human rescue operations, and then we will talk. Really talk, not as enemies, but as species trying to understand each other." The fighting stopped. In the silence that followed, human and Valthor ships floated in space together. Some damaged, some destroyed. Too many lives lost on both sides, but also lives saved. Enemies who had chosen to help each other. Hope where the simulations had predicted only death. 6 months later, the Valthor-Human Accord was signed in Geneva, the same city where Quintar had received a flower from a child. Where Vexthul had learned that survival without compassion was not really living. The treaty established joint colonies, shared research stations, combined defense fleets to protect both species from external threats, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, all the things that happened when two civilizations chose cooperation over conflict. Observer Quintar, now Ambassador Quintar, worked with Dr. Choyuna to create the first integrated xenocultural studies program. They taught young humans in Valthor to learn from each other, to understand each other, to build a future together. Coordinator Vexthul led a reformation movement on Valth Prime. Slowly, carefully, the Valthor were reintroducing concepts of mercy and compassion into their society, not as weaknesses to be eliminated, but as strengths to be cultivated. It was difficult. Thousands of years of conditioning did not change overnight, but it was possible. The humans had proven that change was always possible. Admiral Kang Deho and Commander Park Minji oversaw the Joint Defense Fleet, human and Valthor ships flying together, protecting both civilizations, learning from each other. The simulations still ran, but now they included new variables: hope, mercy, growth. The outcomes were less certain but somehow more promising. Engineer An Taiyang designed hybrid ships that combined Valthor efficiency with human innovation. Vessels that were stronger together than either species could build alone. In a research station orbiting a distant star, a new simulation ran. The most advanced quantum computer the Valthor had ever built processed data about human-Valthor relations. It calculated possibilities, predicted outcomes, and for the first time in Valthor history, the simulation did something unexpected. It displayed not a single predicted outcome, but infinite possibilities. Paths that branched and grew and changed based on choices not yet made. The screen showed uncertainty, variables that could not be calculated because they depended on decisions driven by hope, rather than logic. At the bottom of the display, a message appeared in both human and Valthor languages. Uncertainty detected. Probability, unpredictable. Recommendation, hope. In the observation room, a young Valthor child named Tixlar worked on a school project with a human girl named Park Sora. They were building a model of the joint colony ship that would carry both species to a new world. They argued about design choices, laughed at mistakes, and helped each other with difficult parts. Neither child remembered the war. To them, humans and Valthor working together was normal, natural, the only way things had ever been or should be. Ambassador Quintar watched them work and felt that strange emotion in her chest again. She had learned its name now. Joy. It was inefficient and illogical and served no survival purpose. It was also one of the most important things she had ever felt. Admiral Kang stood beside her. His legs still bothered him in cold weather, a reminder of the battle. But he did not mind. Scars were proof of survival, of choosing to fight for something worth saving. "Do you ever run simulations about what would have happened?" Quintar asked him. "If we had not chosen mercy? If either of us had simply destroyed the other?" "Sometimes," Kang admitted. "The computers say we both would have survived. One species or the other would have won. We would have continued existing. But not living," Quintar said. "No," Kang agreed. "Not living." They watched the children work, watched human and Valthor scientists collaborate in the labs, watched ships from both species moving through space together, exploring, building, growing. The simulations had predicted every outcome except this one. The outcome where mercy proved stronger than fear, where compassion overcame calculation, where two species that should have destroyed each other chose instead to become something better together. They had predicted every outcome except hope. And hope, as it turned out, was the only outcome that really mattered.